when we're ready. We should all be familiar with these. It's something we interact with every day. How is it that something so prevalent in our society can be something that has such little value? Something we've all thrown on the ground or disregarded carelessly? Where everyone might stop to pick up a $20 bill, who's going to stop and pick up 2,000 pennies? That seems a bit ridiculous. As something everyone deals with without regard to race, gender, ethnicity, or even income, the elimination of the penny is something that would affect the world on a grand scale. The question is, how? The US government should stop minting the penny because it costs more to produce than it's worth. The average consumer disregards the penny as a token more so than a piece of currency, and because it just makes sense. Today I'm going to explain to you the reasons why we should eliminate the penny from circulating currency, as well as the reasons and evidence as to why it will benefit the United States and its citizens. There are numerous issues with the use of the penny that have become prevalent in the past 3 decades. Issues whose solutions lend themselves to an overhaul of the US currency, and the forefront of which would be the elimination of the penny. The penny has become a costly drain on an already fragile economy. Having undergone multiple alterations to remain a viable form of currency, the penny has reached a point of stagnation. Prior to 1982, the penny was made of entirely copper. However, in 1982, the price of copper spiked, reaching almost $1.50 a pound, forcing the mint to switch to a majority zinc formula, which is now currently in use. At that time, zinc was a relatively inexpensive metal, however, or it costed about half of what copper did. Just to put that into perspective, in 2006, which is long after the 1982 switch, the mint used 20,000 tons of zinc to produce $60 million worth of pennies, which is a lot of pennies. Don't know. In addition to the initial material cost of making the pennies, you also have to take into account the cost to transport, distribute, and maintain all of the pennies that have rusted or are no longer viable forms. Then you have to remove them from the currency. In addition to that, pennies have a nominally insignificant value. They become almost symbolic as we carry out transactions in stores. We've all seen the take a penny or leave a penny, and we've all walked past pennies on the ground. Often seen as more of a nuisance than a valuable item, the elimination of the penny would actually reduce one area of frustration for consumers. It simply isn't cost effective to deal with pennies. In the time it takes to bend down and pick up a penny, you've actually lost more time. The average wage earner makes a penny in around 2 seconds, which is you would make more in the time it took you to bend down and get it than you would by actually picking up the penny. Which actually suggests that the time spent fishing through your pockets to find a penny to make even change, or the time spent with a cashier counting out your exact change, actually costs more in manpower than it saves by paying an exact change. Now that we've seen a few reasons why the penny is not an effective form of currency, let's look at what will happen when we eliminate it and what that elimination will look like. There are many assumptions about what will happen when the penny is phased out, and how such an abundant item can possibly be removed from circulating currency. One of the most common misconceptions is that after the penny is phased out, it will become entirely worthless. With no more pennies being minted, they will circulate until they're removed from the currency. Their numbers will slowly decline as no new pennies are added in, until finally pennies will slowly die out, unfortunately. The lack of pennies will not render cents to be obsolete. Rather, the final price tag will depend on the currency used to produce it. If you buy something with a credit card, it could still cost a non-0 or 5 end digit, but if you use cash, then it will be rounded up or down depending on a certain formula that we won't get into. Another common misconception about removing the penny from circulation is that costs will increase because the increase 4 or 3 or 2 cents will be passed to the consumer. In a recent study by Robert Wakes, a professor at Wake Forest University, he found that if anything, customers gain just a minuscule amount, about 1 cent for every 40 transactions, which goes to show that nothing is lost by rounding the prices. He conducted his study in a wealthy neighborhood and a poor neighborhood, because part of that is saying the poorer neighborhoods that use mostly cash and don't use the more electronic forms of payment would be more directly affected, but he found that his results were equivalent across both the neighborhoods. The elimination of currency is not unforeseen. U.S. military bases have actually stopped using the penny because it was too costly to transport the coins to the base. So they use the lowest digit would be the 5 cent, so they use nickels. The U.S. also discontinued the half-cent coin in 1857. To put that into perspective, in today's dollars, the half-cent was worth around 14 cents. So we have something that's worth basically nothing, and we still have it around. But in 1857, we took out a piece of currency that was worth about a dime and a half, which is something that is just unheard of. Now that we have seen how the penny is not cost-effective to use as a form of currency, how the penny's lack of value renders it useless and obsolete to consumers, and we've explored why the elimination of the penny wouldn't cause harm to society, instances setting a precedent for currency discontinuation, and the ways in which the penny would actually be removed, it is clear to see that the penny stands on very fragile ground today. I'm not asking that we leave this room with pitchforks demanding an immediate end to the penny, going to knock sense into our lawmakers. But I urge you all to consider how much longer we should continue using such a worthless and almost meaningless piece of change. I ask you to seriously consider, from what I have given you today, how the penny could be removed. In an age of budget deficits and cuts to essential programs in society, we find ways in which we can implement change with both short and long-term success. The next place to look for that change is in how we make it.